Have you ever blurted something out and immediately wished you could go back in time? We've all been there when your words feel like an arrow that can't be pulled back. But imagine if you could perfect your delivery such that every word shows knowledge, elegance, and inner strength. That's precisely what we'll be getting into today. 6 things an educated person never says, all based on the ancient Stoic philosophy. Stoicism tells us that words are more than simply sounds, they express your intellect and ideals. From avoiding pointless bragging to embracing the power of quiet, these habits determine not just how you interact, but also who you are, which is the greatest part. By the end of this video, you'll have practical ideas to improve the way you talk, whether at work, with friends, or even in your own inner dialogue. So get ready. This isn't just about what you say, it's about how your words influence who you are. Don't miss it. We are about to start on a trip that will change the way you perceive the actual power of communication. Number 1. Avoid bragging about your knowledge. Have you ever encountered someone who couldn't stop bragging about their expertise and accomplishments? They'd talk about all they knew, the lessons they'd learned, and the books they'd read. You may be impressed at first, but your interest fades with time. Not because their expertise is less valuable, but because the manner they present it makes others feel overshadowed. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that real wisdom does not need to be flaunted. Seneca famously said, "Nature does not boast about what it generates, and neither should we." This is not only advice, it is a way of life. Allow me to tell you a story. I once had a guy named David who was an expert in technology. David constantly wanted to be the sharpest person in each group or gathering. He'd discuss big projects he'd worked on, complicated technology he'd mastered, and even the prizes he'd received. People were initially enthralled, but as time passed, it became clear that David was using every interaction as a personal showcase. One day, a colleague bluntly told him that, while his knowledge was remarkable, his method of expressing it was alienating others. That event was a watershed moment for David, as he recognized that by attempting to impress, he was unwittingly driving people away. This is a popular trap that many individuals fall into. When you feel obliged to share your expertise or accomplishments, consider why. If you want to help people or participate to a discourse, that's fantastic. However, if your goal is to gain praise or notoriety, you should reconsider. When you boast, you not only devalue your words, but also put up an unseen barrier between yourself and others. Instead of encouraging others, you make them feel criticized or compared to your brilliance. Stoic philosophy provides an answer. First, let your deeds to speak louder than your words. If you actually have expertise, it will automatically appear in your work and how you handle challenges. Second, exercise humility. Humility does not imply downplaying your ability. It implies letting people discover your worth via connection and experience. Finally, listen. Listening not only allows you to learn from others, but it also demonstrates respect and fosters deeper relationships. Listening is a sort of quiet that Stoics believe is extremely powerful. Silence does not indicate a lack of information. It demonstrates confidence and comprehension. David acquired this lesson slowly but thoroughly. He began to speak less about himself and pay more attention to the tales and thoughts of others. Instead of dominating talks, he began to contribute respectfully and listen more. Over time, people began to seek him out, not only for his brilliance, but also for his genuineness and collaborative attitude. He demonstrated that knowledge is not to be flaunted, but to be given in a way that benefits the society. Avoiding bragging does not imply denying yourself the opportunity to share your expertise. It entails presenting it in a manner that makes others feel respected and connected. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that your words reveal your underlying character. When you choose humility over arrogance, you not only enhance your own life, but the lives of people around you. Consider how your words reflect on you. The answer will influence your route to success. 2. Never reject other people's opinions. Have you ever been forgotten in a conversation because your point of view was discarded before you even had a chance to explain? It's a sad sensation to know that all of your efforts and thoughts have been ignored. The worst part. You may even begin to question yourself. Is what I'm saying truly useless? This emotion is all too familiar to me, because I was the one who caused it. Early in my leadership role at work, I felt confident in my ability to make swift decisions. During one discussion, a coworker had a suggestion for improving our process. Without thinking, I intervened, rejecting it as unrealistic. I believed I was saving everyone's time. What I didn't anticipate was the strange hush that followed, the apprehensive stares from others, and the way the discussion proceeded with little enthusiasm for new ideas. Afterward, a trustworthy colleague kindly advised me, maybe you should have listened a little longer. That concept wasn't as horrible as it seemed at first. That remark struck me like a wake-up call. Not only had I missed an opportunity, but I had also unwittingly fostered a culture of hesitation among my team members. Stoic philosophy reminds us that genuine knowledge stems from openness, not arrogance. Seneca reportedly remarked, "You cannot learn what you believe you already know." When you disregard someone's perspective without listening, you not only limit creativity, but also undermine trust and connection. This not only costs you important ideas, but it also diminishes your leadership. That incident prompted me to modify my approach to communications. In following encounters, I reminded myself that hearing does not imply agreeing. Listening entails showing respect and being open to new ideas, even if they may not appear to be practical at first. To my astonishment, by adopting an inquisitive mentality, my staff began to contribute innovative solutions that I had never considered. Here's a viewpoint adjustment you can attempt. Instead of thinking, how can I counteract this idea? What can you learn from this? Even apparently incorrect ideas can provide useful insights. Even if you don't, you'll have a greater grasp of how another person sees the situation, which is valuable in and of itself. Second, exercise humility. Stoicism tells us that we are not at the center of the cosmos. Dismissing someone else's point of view is fundamentally an act of elevating your position above all others, as if you alone had the ultimate truth. But the truth is that no one individual has all the answers. True wisdom is found in teamwork and the sharing of ideas. When I adjusted my approach, the mood at our meetings transformed. I began asking more questions and pushing even the most reserved team members to express their opinions. What was the result? We not only came up with better ideas, but the team felt more valued and connected. I recognized that everyone, in their own way, had something to teach me. Something I had overlooked due to my own impatience and overconfidence. Finally, refusing to discard other people's perspectives is more than just a gesture of generosity, it is a strategy. When you respect the viewpoints of others around you, you open the door to new ideas, insights, and possibilities. You foster trust and create an environment conducive to true creativity. Wisdom, according to Stoics, is not about proving oneself correct. It's about realizing that everyone, in their own manner, holds a piece of the truth. And this is the core of genuine knowledge. 3. Avoid moaning without purpose. Imagine Mark, a middle-aged professional with years of expertise. Mark has a lot on his plate, including meeting job deadlines, handling family commitments, and coping with the inevitable setbacks that life throws at him. However, instead of addressing these issues constructively, Mark has created a habit of incessant whining. Mark's problems are endless, ranging from his co-workers' slowness to the fact that the coffee machine at work is usually broken. At first, his co-workers sympathized and even proposed ideas. But as the weeks passed into months, the hostility wore them down. Conversations with Mark were taxing, and people began to avoid him. Not because they didn't care, but because they couldn't keep up with the steady stream of complaints. One day, during a lunch break, a friend said something that stopped Mark dead in his tracks. "I understand your frustration, Mark, but what are you doing to address these issues?" The question persisted. Mark understood he was not seeking for solutions. He was spewing without a reason. Worse, his continual negativity alienated people while also strengthening his own sense of powerlessness. This situation is all too common. It's easy to get into the trap of venting grievances without contemplating the consequences for others or ourselves. Stoic philosophy provides a potent antidote. Concentrate on what you have control over and let go of the rest. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, wisely stated, "You have power over your mind, not external events." Realize this and you will gain strength. Complaining, especially about situations beyond our control, exacerbates feelings of helplessness and traps us in a cycle of negativity. However, not all criticisms are intrinsically negative. When framed with a goal, they can affect positive change. However, when they lack direction, complaints become noise, meaningless words that drain energy and solve nothing. Think about it. Complaining about traffic does not clear the roads, and whining about the weather does not stop the rain. Intelligent individuals see this distinction and direct their efforts toward what genuinely matters. So, how can you quit the habit of needless complaining? When you're feeling frustrated, ask yourself one simple question. What can I do about it? If the response is nothing, let it go. Venting over uncontrolled problems wastes time and robs you of inner serenity. Redirect your energy into something beneficial. Read, ponder, or express thanks for the positive aspects of your life. Another technique is to shift your perspective. Instead of asking, "Why does this keep happening to me?" try asking, "What can I learn from this?" Stoicism believes that every struggle is a chance for improvement. Complaints blind us to these chances, whereas introspection allows us to discover them. Returning to Mark, he took his friend's advice to heart and began to change his perspective. Instead of grumbling about his boss, he began planning intelligent solutions to the problems he encountered at work. Rather than complain about his trip, he listened to audiobooks or practiced mindfulness during traffic jams. His perspective shifted with time, and his remarks became more powerful because they were no longer negative. His connections strengthened, and his co-workers began to seek his guidance and company, drawn to his calm, solution-oriented manner. Finally, abstaining from meaningless complaints is about recovering your authority. Focusing on what you can control not only strengthens your intellect, but also increases your effect on others around you. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that our words and ideas are instruments. When used appropriately, they may help you live a life full of resilience, purpose, and connection to others. When you let go of meaningless complaints and embrace productive action, you change not just how others view you, but also your own life. 4. No hollow promises. Promises have a particular place in our lives. They set expectations, foster trust, and define relationships. Yet, how often do we make promises without really thinking if we can keep them? This behavior, which is frequently unintended, may destroy credibility and harm relationships. Stoic philosophy emphasizes the necessity of matching our words to our deeds, emphasizing that integrity is not found in talking much but in doing what we say. Consider Thomas, a 50-something professional with a busy work and family duties. Thomas was well-intentioned but frequently overcommit himself. He'd promise his staff that he'd examine their reports by Monday or guarantee his family that he'd be home in time for supper, only to fall short time after time. People first justified his actions, citing his hectic schedule. But as the unmet promises increased, so did the disappointments. His teammates began to question his dedication, and his family became tired of his endless excuses. Thomas's statements, previously taken at face value, now carried a hint of skepticism. After skipping another family gathering, his teenage daughter placed a letter on his desk that stated, "We just want you to mean it when you say it." This simple statement struck a chord. Thomas understood that, despite his best intentions, his hollow promises were causing more harm than good, destroying the trust and respect he had fought so hard to establish. This anecdote emphasizes an important Stoic idea. Speak with intent and behave with honesty. Seneca once wrote, "Let your words be plain and true." This instruction reminds us that pledges are more than simply for the present. They are commitments that connect our words to our personalities. Breaking a promise, even unknowingly, is the equivalent of writing a check that your reputation cannot cash. So, how can we avoid making hollow promises while maintaining trust and respect? Begin by pausing before making a commitment. Ask yourself if you have the time, resources, and energy to keep this commitment. If the answer is unknown, it is preferable to set reasonable expectations rather than overpromise and underdeliver. For example, instead of stating, "I'll have this ready by tomorrow," I'll try to get it done by tomorrow, but if I need more time, I'll let you know. Another tactic is to underpromise and overdeliver. Setting reasonable objectives and occasionally exceeding them not only prevents disappointment, but also establishes a reputation for dependability. Imagine Thomas telling his staff he'd need 3 days to study their reports, but finishing them in 2. These activities say volumes about competence and thoughtfulness. Finally, accept accountability. If you find yourself unable to maintain a promise, confront the situation square on. Apologize honestly, explain the problem concisely, and provide a solution. This method not only reduces the harm, but also demonstrates respect for the other person's time and trust. Thomas took these teachings to heart. He became more conscious of his responsibilities, saying no when necessary and ensuring he could keep his promises. Over time, his staff restored faith in him, and his family came to perceive his efforts as sincere. Furthermore, Thomas experienced a shift in himself, a sense of calm that came from knowing his words were meaningful and his actions supported them. In the end, avoiding false promises does not imply perfection. It's about being genuine and dependable. Stoic philosophy tells us that genuine power comes from living with integrity, in which words and deeds are flawlessly aligned. By adhering to this idea, you will not only get respect, but also develop deeper, more meaningful connections. After all, our pledges do not define us. These are the ones we preserve. Before we go on to the next video, if you enjoyed this one, please like it and subscribe to the channel with the notification bell turned on so you don't miss any future ones. If you're as enthusiastic about this type of information as I am, add a remark like, "I love this wisdom." Let us proceed. 5. Do not deny your faults. Have you ever thought that confessing a mistake means exposing your flaws for everyone to see? I used to believe that, but one incident entirely altered my mind. Stoic philosophy taught me that acknowledging faults does not decrease your worth. Instead, it portrays you as honest and strong. Seneca once stated, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my error in any thought or action, I will gladly change, because the truth is what I seek, and the truth never harms anyone." Allow me to relate a personal anecdote. Several years ago, I was in charge of a significant project at work. In an effort to fulfill a tight deadline, I neglected several crucial elements in a report. As a result of those inaccuracies, my team received criticism from senior management. When the error was discovered, my initial inclination was to make excuses, blame the workload, the short deadline, or anything other than myself. Deep down, I knew it would just damage the trust one had fought so hard to establish. Instead, I decided to tackle the problem. At the next meeting, I recognized my error, apologized to my team, and set specific plans to guarantee it would not happen again. The answer was surprising. Instead of passing judgment, my colleagues welcomed my candor. Some even commended me for being accountable and setting an example. I discovered that confessing my error did not weaken me. It made me more trustworthy. Why is admitting faults so powerful? Because it reduces defensiveness and fosters trust. By accepting responsibility, you convey a clear statement that you choose truth above ego. You also create a safe environment in which people may recognize their faults and strive toward solutions. But let's get real. Admitting mistakes is not always easy. We don't want to be judged or lose respect. Yet, consider this. Does denying a clear error help your image? Or does it make you appear untrustworthy? Remember, having the guts to confess your flaws is a show of confidence. It demonstrates that you are strong enough to confront the truth and determined to improving. So, how can you apply this lesson to your life? Begin by cultivating self-awareness. When anything goes wrong, resist the desire to point fingers and instead ask yourself, what was my part in this? Even if your portion of the guilt is minor, admitting it is the first step toward resolution. Next, work on resolving the issue. Don't simply apologize and move on. Show by your actions that you are striving to put things right. Stoic philosophy teaches us that errors are not failures, but rather chances to learn and improve. Those who have the bravery to recognize their faults not only better themselves, but also encourage those around them. When you learn to accept your errors, you establish a foundation of respect and trust. Don't try to hide or divert your next mistake. Pause, accept responsibility, and resolve to do better. Remember, having the bravery to accept your faults is what genuinely distinguishes you and gets you respect. 6. Do not overshare future plans. The Stoics highlight that honoring pledges is more than merely meeting duties. It is important maintaining your credibility and respecting others. Empty promises, no matter how little they appear in the moment, may gradually erode your image and credibility. Let me tell a story that may seem familiar. Meet Andrew, a middle-aged professional with a kind disposition who tends to agree to everything others ask of him. Whether it was assisting a buddy with a relocation, volunteering for an additional assignment at work, or committing to attend every community event, Andrew had a standard reaction. Okay, count me in. However, as life became more hectic, those well-intentioned promises began to pile up, and he began forgetting or failing to show up. One day, a close buddy asked Andrew to a significant family dinner. Andrew, as usual, happily agreed, but then forgot and arranged a work meeting at the same time. The day after the meal, his friend informed him how dissatisfied their family was. Andrew received a wake-up call. He realized his remarks, intended to satisfy in the moment, were doing more harm than good. His promises, although not malevolent, had become empty, and they were harming the relationships he valued most. This instance illustrates a typical trap. We may overcommit in order to avoid difficult situations or look agreeable. However, the Stoics remind us that words should be intentional and consistent with our deeds. Seneca wrote, "If it is not right, don't do it. If that is not true, then do not mention it." In other words, every promise should be based on honesty and intention. Saying yes without conviction is typically motivated by a desire to avoid disappointing people. However, failure to follow through does far more harm. So, how can you prevent making hollow promises? Begin with a pause. Before agreeing to something, think about if it corresponds with your priorities and if you can practically fulfill it. If not, a polite no can be considerably more beneficial than a tentative yes that never materializes. People value honesty and clarity over imprecise agreements that cause dissatisfaction. Next, choose quality over quantity. It's preferable to commit to fewer tasks and accomplish them well than to spread oneself too widely and disappoint people. When you declare you're going to accomplish something, do it with purpose and perfection. This method cultivates a reputation for dependability and respect. Finally, know that saying no is not selfish. It is self-awareness. The Stoics believed in focusing on what you can manage, and spreading oneself too widely reduces your capacity to keep commitments that are actually important. When you make your promises thoughtful and deliberate, you defend your integrity and foster trust. As Andrew thought about his wake-up call, he began to take a more conscious approach. He started saying no to demands he couldn't truly satisfy and instead concentrated on meeting the most important obligations. His connection strengthened over time, and people began to admire him for always following through on what he promised to, rather than saying yes to everything. Finally, avoiding hollow promises involves more than simply keeping your word. It's about matching your activities to your ideals and making deeper, more meaningful relationships. The Stoics remind us that everything we say influences how others see us and how we perceive ourselves. So the next time someone asks you for a commitment, take a deep breath, consider, and make sure your pledge is something you can truly honor. That is not just knowledge, but also strength. I'd love to hear about your experiences and accomplishments. Please subscribe, enable notifications, and leave a comment below to share your experience, triumphs, and difficulties conquered. If you're not sure what to say, simply type, "I love this," to indicate that you've finished the session. Your participation helps our community develop wisdom and the ability to transform any obstacle into an opportunity. I'll leave 2 more films here so you may keep learning and improving in your personal development path. Thank you, and see you in the future video.